Passages between these islands of the Caribbean seem to be just about an all-day affair. So when you start one, you start early.
So we have left St. Martin and we are on our way to St. Kitts and Nevis, about 60 miles southeast of St. Martin. We've been planning this trip for a week. The trade winds have been blowing really hard and we're waiting for a lull to get across, and we found one and we're taking it. The waves don't seem that bad right now, although we might be in the shadow of St. Bart's, so it could get worse. The wind is awesome. We're flying and we should get there this afternoon. Really looking forward to exploring a new place. There's lots of hiking. There's a train ride. I don't know what that's about, but I bet you it'll be interesting. And hopefully we'll get in the water and do some snorkeling as well. There's also maybe some kiting, so we'll see what that's all about. Anyway, we're underway and should get there this afternoon. So this is a pretty neat sail because you can see a ton of different places. Let me show you. That is St. Martin. That is St. Bart. That is a main flag where we're going, St. Kitts and Nevis. That's the station. And then over here, that is Saba. Unfortunately, we're not going there. We'll catch that on the way back up the Caribbean next season. But it's pretty neat how close all these islands are together. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting to be able to see all of the islands we want to go to in one view. So we're in the lee of St. Kitts and all the wind is blowing over the mountains. So if you're too close to the island, it makes it difficult. But if you go out just enough and you catch that wind, it is awesome. Hardly any waves. We're touching on 9.5 knots here and there over ground. So yeah, fun sailing. I think we should keep on going to Nevis. So we made it to St. Kitts. The weather was pretty close to what the predictions were. The waves were a little higher and the winds were a little stronger, but not completely off the rails wrong. So it was a good sail and we got here faster than we were expecting. Now to go explore the island. 'Cause even in the madness, there is peace, drowning out the voices all around me. Through all of this chaos, you are writing a symphony, oh.
The wind kept pounding us and we needed to get off the boat, so some new friends suggested a cab ride into Basseterre. Dale and Roy of Wahoo on the radio in the anchorage we were hiding out in. Basseterre had some really beautiful churches to explore. Bakery, where Shane eyed the desserts, grabbed a lunch, and hit a museum. It was a good first start to exploring St. Kitts. We tried a quick snorkel around the anchorage we were in. Meanwhile, on the boat...
Hello. I've been on the boat by myself all today, and I've been doing school for the past 5 hours, and I'm alone, and I'm quite bored. So I'm just gonna stare at a camera. Actually, no, I'm not, because that's quite pointless. But a look at our friendly old neighborhood. Quite nice.
Anyway, the snorkel was nice. There was a decent amount of coral and plants, but not a ton of fish. The water was crystal clear, though. The coolest creatures here weren't even on the reef. They were around the engine block used for a mooring. That is an octopus. He was very camouflaged and seemed very safe here. And speaking of camouflage, look at how amazing this flounder looked. Snorkeling was a fun diversion, but we really needed to get away from the boats and dig into St. Kitts. The winds continued, so Shane and Tanya rented a car for an epic day of exploring St. Kitts.
You think he'll charge us?
Some dinghy skills there, Will. Dealing with the wind and everything. Bye, Willie.
It's a small island, so you don't have to race around it.
Our first stop was the Fairview Great House, one of the many former plantations of St. Kitts. This one had been impeccably restored. They had a pond in the shape of the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm going to butcher this name, but Kishu Chandramani grew a family business into a successful grocery chain on St. Kitts, and he and the family are responsible for restoring this whole place. In the basement of the main building was a pretty extensive slavery exhibit. The history of these islands is so tightly interwoven with it, and it was a very informative, thorough, and sobering exhibit. Sometimes Google Maps doesn't work so well on St. Kitts.
I guess you go straight.
Boy.
It's off-road now.
Our next stop was Romney Manor. This was originally a Carib Indian settlement. After their massacre in the early 1600s, Sam Jefferson, the great-great-great-grandfather of Thomas Jefferson, claimed the site as his own and created an estate. This tree was over 400 years old. It was massive. From the grounds, you could see an old sugar factory chimney, so we headed that way. It turned out to be a pretty extensive site, including an aqueduct.
How did they find it? Do you know?
Well, they had some heavy rain, so just a brief demonstration to the sun. Here, we haven't done any.
After walking the grounds, we went inside a building that turned out to be a tasting room for Old Road rum. After tasting, we headed out. We had to get moving to see the fortress.
Shane and I were like, no, we're good.
We were on our way to Brimstone Hill Fortress, which is built atop a pretty high hill. And to get there, you have to drive through some very narrow openings and successive walls that ring the front of the hill.
You got plenty over here.
There's scrape marks on the cannon.
I'm sure there are.
We made it to the top without any scrapes, then set out to wander the grounds. This place was massive. Brimstone Hill Fortress is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. I'll put a link with more info about it in the video description. It would take me hours of babbling to cover the history of this place. So I'm realizing as I'm walking through this magnificent fort built back in the 1700s that
I do a pretty bad job at researching things before we go visit them. So I end up having to fill in later. What I really need to do is read about this stuff before we actually go do it, so I know what the heck I'm looking at.
This was the munitions building. I can't imagine having to walk all the way down here to haul munitions back up to the main fort.
6 feet thick. Yeah, Aaron was noticing.
This building was the officers' quarters. The rooms were surprisingly pretty large.
The first cut cannons up here.
The main building of the fortress sat at the top of the hill and had a 360-degree vantage point of the surrounding sea and countryside. As it turned out, it wasn't the narrow walls that were going to get us, it was just the normal driving.
Slow your ass down, buddy.
Our last stop of the day was Black Rock, a beautiful rock formation on the windward side of the island. This ended up being an epic day on St. Kitts thanks to Tanya's planning and Shane's driving. We were wiped out, but enjoyed our time on the island. Thanks for watching, and follow along next week as we head to Nevis, where we explore more ruins and take a dip in hot springs. Follow us on Instagram to keep up with us daily, and thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Whew. Yeah, that's hot.
No, you gotta lay across and hold your arms to the side. Come on. Put your feet on the end and hold your arms to the side. Don't hit your hands on the bottom, that hurt.